Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was Disney's first feature-length animated film. It was an amazing feat and set the tone for what Disney animation would become. Not only did it kick off Disney's golden era, but it defined it. To hear more about that, I highly recommend you check out Angie's video on the subject. After you finish this one, of course. But none of that would have been possible without a woman named Mary Weiser. In 1936, Weiser was a member of the ink and paint department, and she'd begun to notice a problem when it came to mixing paints. A lot of times, the colors wouldn't blend properly or would bleed into other cells. A majority of a painter's time was soon focused on washing out the bad cells or completely redoing work because it had refused to dry. Not only were the painters wasting time, but Disney was also wasting money on all this paint. So Weiser took it upon herself to solve this problem. She went out and got herself a degree in chemistry, for she understood that it took a chemist's eye to properly mix paints. One needed to understand what the different paints were composed of and how the pigments would work together. Soon, Weiser began developing effective paint formulas suited for the celluloid Disney was using, and within the year, a new paint lab was installed with Mary as the supervisor. Her methodical approach to color development led to Disney becoming the first and only animation studio to create its own paints. Weiser developed training classes, assembled reference manuals, and filled countless notebooks with her experiments. Her work resulted in 2 key patents for techniques that would change the game for animation, and they were both created for Disney's first princess. When Snow White was in development, it was understood early on that for a feature film, they would need to use a wider palette of colors than what they were used to. Color wouldn't just be a gimmick, it would support the story, build emotional reactions, advance the plot, and explain characters. All the little subconscious cues that the audience would pick up on. As the star of the film, Snow White needed to stand out, and Walt insisted on finding lots of ways to expand her dimensionality. One method came in 1937 when Weiser created a specific solution which would dissolve into a soft glow with no noticeable edges, providing a natural warmth to Snow White's cheeks. In order to maintain this, the solution had to be applied across each scene. In this way, they weren't just animating Snow White's face, but the color itself. Now, I'd like to address a common misconception and myth regarding this discovery. Many of you have probably heard the story that the women of ink and paint used their own rouge and cosmetics to achieve Snow White's rosy complexion. In reality, this is a gross simplification of all of the work these women put in. It was rather tedious to apply the solution correctly, and it was the women who were able to do it best. They had been wearing makeup all their lives. They knew where it was supposed to go and how it was supposed to look. This resulted in a charming, if not demeaning, story that has been perpetuated for decades, rather than delving into the artistry and color animation techniques developed by Weiser and her team. This unique approach, soon known as the blend, was a huge advancement made by the Paint Lab, and Weiser patented it as the method to add depth and texture effects in animated cartoons. Mary's second patent was for the development of a tool used to achieve the blend, kind of like a wax pencil that could create pastel effects, feathering techniques, and the staining effect that defines Snow White's cheeks. With these developments, Weiser elevated the level of artistry that would put Walt's first feature film amongst the stars. To me, Mary Weiser isn't just a noteworthy animator. She's also a pioneering woman in STEM. This was the 1930s. It wasn't really known for women to go out and get their degrees, let alone in a scientific field. But Weiser was very passionate about what she was doing, and when she saw this problem, she knew she was the right woman for the job. She never let anything stand in her way. I want to give a big shout out to the Ink and Paint, The Women of Walt Disney's Animation book by Mindy Johnson, which is where a majority of this research came from, and I highly recommend checking it out, along with the upcoming documentary, which will be on Disney's streaming service, Disney+. Now, this isn't necessarily where Weiser's story ends, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of our uploads, and let me know down in the comments who you'd like to hear us cover next for Disney Legends. That's everything got for you today, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!